Welcome back to Money Made Simple. This is episode 4. Today, the title of the episode is My Dad Says That I Need a Roth IRA. Is that true? So, yeah, you told me probably pretty early on that I needed to set up a Roth
Yeah.
IRA, and I think you were matching my contributions. But anyways, I'm joined as always by my dad, Mike Lockwood. Dad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Nick. Did you notice my new background? Mom made me a little studio back here. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, it looks good.
yeah,
Um, I got a haircut this morning, so I've got a little bit of a updo here myself, but yeah, it looks good. So today we want to get into the conversation around Roth. Our first couple episodes, or first 3 episodes rather, that we did, we spent some time setting the table for our group, where we come from. We talked about financial confusion versus financial clarity. And then the most recent episode, we spent some time talking about employer versus employee conversations that are being had as they relate to retirement plans at work. And so today, this is the first of many episodes that we'll do where we go a little bit deeper into some more financial planning concepts. And we wanted to start today with a question that we get all the time, and that is, do I need to be contributing to a Roth IRA? Should I have that? So, Dad, with that in mind, do you have anything to start here that you'd like to
yeah.
say?
This is a great topic because we honestly have this question a lot, and it comes from when I used to work in the hospital system and sit there. I'd have kids, and I still call them kids, would come in and ask me that question. Hey, my dad says I need a Roth. What is a Roth? And so I thought this would be a good topic for us to talk about. But let me take us back history a little bit. I've been doing this for 38 years, as you know, Nick. And I started in November of 1987. And before I started, some folks might remember they reformed Social Security. Social Security, people don't know this, but in 1983, Social Security was 10 months from insolvency. So they were worse than it is. It was worse than it was now. But Reagan came in and he kind of pushed the envelope a little bit, and they changed Social Security. So what did they do? They said, well, I could retire till I was 67. My mom could retire at 65, but all the 30-year-olds that were working, the 25-year-olds, we had to wait till 67. The other thing they did is they increased the payroll tax. So how much I was paying and how much my employer was paying into Social Security went up. And some folks may not remember that. But the last thing that I know folks don't know is Social Security used to be tax-free. And that's when they started taxing it for higher income earners at 50%. And as you know, they've lowered that income level down to 50%. So the government has always known that saving is a problem for America. And so they've tried to come up with solutions to help with that. And that's how the Roth came into play. In 1999, Senator William Roth out of Delaware introduced the concept to try to get folks to save on their own. Now, back then, it was a simple $2,000 per year that you can contribute, and we'll get into the complexities and how it works in a little bit. But that was the start in 1999, and over the next 25, 26 years now, it's grown and is evolutionized into like 4 different areas. So the government was getting their taxes now, right, with the idea that later you could take money out tax-free. So that's why they did it. 1, to incentivize folks to save on their own, and 2, to have folks not put money in a traditional IRA where you had a tax break and hopefully create some tax revenue right out of the gate. So that's a little bit of history behind that, Nick. So
Yeah, and back when Roth would have been introduced, I mean, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, employer pensions were really common. So you would have your employer pension as part of your retirement income. You'd have that Social Security, but it seemed like less emphasis was being put on personal saving, maybe by Americans, and correct me if I'm wrong, but once they introduced Roth, it was just another tool or another vehicle or another avenue for people to save money into that would help maybe alleviate some of the pressure off of the government and the employer
yeah, that's a great point. And
sponsored
not to get
retirement
too far
plans.
in the weeds, but if you go back, pensions were huge back in the 50s and 60s, and pensions started going away. And so now employers are trying to figure out a way to incentivize folks to save. That's why the 401k came into existence in the early 70s, is we were trying to get people to save on their own. And so all along, it's as a worker, things were being taken away, and they're trying to incentivize you to save on your own and be more responsible. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm getting off in the weeds a little bit, but there's a lot of history behind this stuff, which is pretty fascinating to me.
Yeah, so why don't we kick things off just talking through a Roth IRA, what that is? That maybe you can explain the difference between a pre-tax contribution and then a Roth contribution, and then we can speak specifically to Roth IRAs and some of the things that people ought to know
Yeah,
with those.
the basics of Roth is you are foregoing a current tax break for the opportunity to save on a tax deferred basis. I'm sorry, the earnings being tax deferred, and then taking the money out tax free when you need it. And so again, the logic behind that is you may be earning less now or paying less taxes now than you would be in the future. And so in a higher tax bracket, wouldn't it be nice to have tax-free income? So that's the basics of it, Nick. You want to
Yeah.
dig a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, so with a Roth IRA, you have to have working income to be eligible to make contributions into that account. So that's the first thing. Above that, the government each year will set contribution limits. So you can only contribute up to that IRS maximum. For 2026, the limits tend to go up every year, every couple of years. But for 2026, a contribution limit into a Roth IRA is $7,500. And then for those who are over age 50, you can contribute a little bit extra. It's $1,100. The next thing is there's also a income limit. So once you make more money than the IRS's established income limit for that year, you're either phased out as far as how much you can contribute or you can't contribute at all. So for 2026, the income phase out for a single tax filer starts at 153,000 and you're phased out completely at 168,000. And this is modified adjusted gross income. So one technicality there. For our married folks, $242,000 of income is what starts the phase out. And then once you get over 252,000, you can't make any Roth IRA contributions. So with that in mind, assuming somebody's eligible, right, they can make after-tax contributions into a Roth IRA. Really, they can invest that money in there however they like to. And all of the growth through the years, right, depending on what you invest in, that eventually can come out to you tax-free so long as you've hit a couple different requirements, like the account's been around for 5 years. So there's a few other technicalities, but, just keep in mind with eligibility to contribute to a Roth IRA, not everybody is eligible, but a lot of people
Most are,
are.
though, based on those income limits. I mean, if you kind of look
Right.
at it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So on the Roth IRA front, remember IRA is an individual retirement account, meaning it's not tied to your employer. So that means you've set that up individually, right? It's got nothing to do with work. Recently, it's become more and more common, and even more
Nikki,
recently,
Nick, let me ask you
yeah,
real quick. What can you invest in with a Roth IRA? Can I put it in a CD if I wanted to?
yeah, that's a good
Could I
question.
buy
So,
all Amazon stock with it?
yeah, the way I describe it is a Roth IRA is like a bucket that describes the taxation of the money. Within that bucket of a Roth IRA, yeah, you could go buy a CD, you could buy a money market fund, you could go buy Tesla stock or Amazon stock, you could buy mutual funds, ETFs, right? All sorts of different things can be held within that Roth IRA. It's just the taxation or the tax treatment of however that investment performs will be tax deferred and tax free. One on that point, one common issue that I run into is I'll have a lot of people come in who will have a Roth IRA that they've been contributing to. And I'll say, okay, how is that invested? Maybe it's out of Fidelity or Schwab or something like that. And they'll pull up a statement and I look in there and everything's in cash,
Yeah.
right? Meaning they made those contributions. So their dad told them to set up the Roth IRA, but maybe their dad didn't go so far as to tell them you need to actually invest that money if you want to. So, there'll be people with 40, 50, 60, $70,000 that's been in cash for as long as they've been contributing to that Roth IRA.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's always one thing to consider. There's the first step is if you're eligible, contribute money to the Roth IRA, but then secondly, if you're doing
Which
the
is very
investments on your
good,
own.
right? Very good that they saved it, but second, they just didn't take that next step and
Right.
get it actually invested. We see that a lot. So,
Right, right. Okay, let's move to Roth 401ks, 403bs, unless you've got anything on the Roth IRA portion.
no, we'll dig a little bit deeper with some of our next conversations. So,
Okay.
we've talked about this before. Folks will have a 401k, 403b, and that's a very easy way to build wealth, right? It's a payroll deducted savings plan, and many times your employer is putting money in with you. And so it's one of those pay yourself first concepts that you're able to save, and you get a tax break on it. So at the end of the year, it lowers your taxable income, and you're paying less tax as well. A couple years ago, they decided to expand that Roth a little bit more, and now a lot of plans, and you should check with your employer. A lot of plans have that Roth 401k, Roth 403b, Roth 457 if you're working in the governmental space. They have that ability that you can save. Now, you don't get an immediate tax break on this, but it's going to grow again, tax deferred. And then when you retire and you need access to it, it'll be tax-free income. So you want to look at your plan to see if they have that option. Let me to go one more step, Nick, and then I want you to kind of comment on this. The employer match. So if I put in 6% into my 401k and my employer matches me and puts 3% in, I can elect to have my 6% go to Roth, but that 3% from the employer goes into the traditional bucket where eventually you will pay taxes. So you can't have all of the money be Roth, but your portion can certainly be Roth. And then when you retire, you just got to split the bucket, and have a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA. So,
Another important thing to remember with workplace, so 401k, 403b, 457 Roth contributions is there's no income limit like there is with the Roth IRA.
yeah, that's a huge
So,
deal. Yeah.
yeah, if you're a, single tax filer who makes $200,000 per year, you're not eligible per the IRS guidelines to make a Roth IRA contribution, but you can put the maximum amount into your 401k or your 403b at work. So that's one important thing to know. The second is, like I kind of just mentioned, the contribution limits into a 401k or a 403b are much higher than a Roth IRA. So for 2026, the 403b 401k limit is $24,500. You could contribute $24,500, 100% of that on a Roth basis. So it's just a way to be able to get extra money put away that's after tax, going to grow tax deferred, come out tax free. So
Yeah. So think about that for a minute. If you can put 7,500 into a traditional Roth IRA, and then you go and check with your employer, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, I've got a Roth 401k available where I can put up to 24,500. Why wouldn't you do the 24,500? Yes, the Roth IRA, you're allowed to invest it in, like I said, you can be silly and invest it all in Amazon stock if you want to. Your 401k, they're going to have a lineup of funds and things that you can invest in. But again, if you can save 24,000 a year versus 24,500 versus 7,500, that's a heck of a lot more opportunity. You can still do both. You can still do both. But why not do the employer plan, get a match attached with it?
yeah, a common question too that I'll get is I have a Roth IRA, but I'm just now learning that I have a Roth 401k or Roth 403b at work. So what, yeah, what should I do? Where should I contribute? One way that I've thought about it is if you currently are under the Roth IRA income limit, so you're eligible to make Roth IRA contributions, but you suspect that in coming years, your income might go up to the point where you're phased out of eligibility there. Typically, the way I think about it is, well, why don't you contribute to that Roth IRA now while your income is below that threshold? And if you want to contribute more above and beyond, more dollars above and beyond that Roth IRA limit, then start contributing to your workplace plan. Now, you do wanna keep in mind if you're getting a match on your work account, you wanna take full advantage of that match if you can do that, but just when it comes down to prioritizing Roth IRA versus Roth 401k, to me, I like the idea of taking advantage of the Roth IRA while I can, and then if my income goes above that limit,
Sure,
you know,
that
I'll
makes
I'll
sense.
I'll
Yeah,
pivot to the
yeah,
401k, but,
yeah.
um
That makes sense.
okay. So let's move to Roth conversions then. This is becoming, Roth in general, I've found has become way more prevalent in conversations that we're having. Even in the
Yeah.
last 5 years, I think more and more people are coming in. I
Mhm.
think when we sit down with people, right, I think we brought up Roth for a number of years and the idea of doing conversions or contributing Roth. And a lot of people, they're kind of gun shy to that idea because they like the tax break. And when we talk to them about their conversations with CPAs and their tax folks. Their CPAs typically, not always, but typically will say pre-tax, pre-tax, pre-tax contributions, get the tax break. And my
Yeah.
my joke is, yeah, oftentimes it's because CPAs are paid to save you money now. And that's totally fair. It makes sense if you can get a big tax deduction, take it. But if we're thinking 20, 30 years down the road,
And the
is there a
kids,
place
and for the
where
kids, yeah.
yeah, and for the kids and things like that, can a case be made for making Roth contributions, even if right now the sting of a tax bill hurts? So along those kind of planning lines are Roth conversions, and these have, like I said, become way more prevalent in recent years as people are trying to reposition maybe some of their pre-tax money that they have. So, Dad, why don't you just go through your take of a
I
Roth
think the
conversion?
easiest way to talk about a Roth conversion is to give an example. So, let's say we are, speaking with a 65-year-old recent retiree, and the 65-year-old has turned on their Social Security for them and the spouse. They might have a pension that's coming in. Their mortgage is paid off, but they have, let's say, $500,000 in cash in the bank. And what's the cash in the bank earning? Now that's a safe spot, right, for cash. We like that. It's I always call it my sleep well at night fund. But if it's in the bank, it's earning at the most probably 2.5%, right? But in addition to that, they might have 1.5 million in IRAs. And they're 65, and in 10 years, they're going to have to start taking that money out, whether they like to or not. One, we don't know where taxes are going to be in 10 years. We know where they are now, and folks aren't going to believe me when I say this, but they are traditionally as low as they've ever been from a marginal tax standpoint. So yeah, we all have taxes. I get that, but traditionally they're low. So I personally believe in 10 years taxes will be higher. Okay. So think about that 65-year-old. They're going to be forced to take money out at 73 or 75, usually 75 if they're 65. Um, and they're gonna have to take that money out regardless. They don't need the money because again, their mortgage is paid off, their pension. Yeah, it's play money, but more importantly, it's probably health care money if they have an issue later. But they've got 2 or 3 kids. So one idea is to do a Roth conversion on part of that IRA. So let's say again we got 1.5 million and we decide to take a $200,000 Roth conversion. Now we're looking at those tax brackets, and I might be getting in the weeds too much, but this is what we do, and this is kind of the fun stuff for me. We look at those tax brackets, and if you look at tax brackets, Nick, you know this. Right now, there's a 12% bracket, there's a 22% bracket, there's a 24% bracket, and then it jumps up to 32%, right? So what we would try to do is look at their current income tax bracket, figure out how to use all of that 22 or 24% space and convert an amount to Roth. The bad. The bad is if I convert $200,000 in Roth, that $200,000 is added to the taxable income. That's the hard pill to swallow for a lot of folks. But remember that 1.5 million is invested. The cash in the bank is not invested. Why not? If you're in a 25, 30% tax bracket, 30% of 200 is 60,000. Why not take 60,000 out of that 500,000 to pay a tax bill and now have 200,000 that can grow tax free, and you never have to take money out. And honestly, you can leave it for the kids and be tax free. That's a huge planning. And again, every year next year maybe you do 100,000. You've got 10 years to kind of get all this money into Roth IRA money in that kind of example right there. So That's the basics of a Roth conversion. And Nick, to your point, we've had these available for 10, 15 years, but only the last couple years have we been doing a lot of Roth conversions for that reason, right, Nick?
Yeah. When are certain times where it might make sense to do a Roth conversion? Like, are there any cases where you say, "Oh, you identify something in a couple or a client's case, and you're like, this might
Yeah.
be a good time to do it or consider it."
Again, the example I gave is a great example of when to do it. When would you not do it, right? One, if you don't have a lot of money sitting in cash to help pay the taxes, so you probably could do it, but you're gonna do it at a lot smaller pace. Second, if you have no heirs or no children that you're concerned about, right, that you're trying to set up for the next level down when you pass away, it may be too, like I said, too big a pill to swallow, and you're just going to deal with the taxes as you keep going through life. We have a lot of clients like that. We might have a single lady or a married couple with no kids, and we talk about Roth conversions, and the only reason they would do it is in that example where they have a lot of money in cash, and they know it's too much money in cash, and they would rather convert it and have some money that they don't have to take out. One of the things to remember when you do a Roth conversion, Nick, and I think you were going to mention this, is it has to sit there for 5 years before you can touch it again. So again, to that point, Nick, right, that 65-year-old, if they're a little scared, we might twist their arm a little bit and say, hey, let's convert 10,000. Let's just get that clock rolling so that if you decide to do more later, you've got 4 years less. So
Yeah. Yeah, and this is one layer of complexity along those lines, but even further is if let's take somebody who's got 401k at work and they're 60 years old, they've been doing pre-tax contributions their whole career, and when they turn 61, their friend or their tax person said, "Hey, why don't you start to contribute some Roth money into that 401k?" Well, that Roth 401k money has that same 5-year rule. So that same, right, if you make $1,000 contribution in this case when the person's 61, technically that person is not eligible to take a tax-free distribution of that Roth money until they're 66. So it's good to at least as early as you can just get that Roth money started somewhere just so that that 5-year clock is not a reason why you can't take a distribution later. The other thing to consider too is let's take that same 60-year-old who makes a Roth contribution when they're 61 into the 401k. If they leave work when they're 62 and roll over their 401k into an IRA and their Roth money goes into a Roth IRA, if they never had a Roth IRA before, they just restarted that 5-year clock by establishing a new Roth IRA. So all of that can be mitigated by set up a Roth IRA just earlier in your career. At some point, just get that clock started. And same thing
yeah,
with Roth money in a work retirement account too.
yeah.
Let's go now just to our perspectives from our different phases of
Nick, I
our.
don't know if you remember this. You haven't been around long enough, but the Roth conversions, they used to, when they first introduced those, they weren't going to let people do it forever. There was like a 5 year. There was a time that they introduced it, and for 5 years you can convert it. And then the window was closed; you couldn't do Roth conversions. So they did that as a test, and you could only do a certain amount per year. You can only convert a certain amount per year. But I think what happened is they figured out it was a big tax boom for them to have folks convert more whenever they wanted to. So instead of them wait until I'm 75 to start getting my money out of my 401k and be taxed on it, they'll take my money now, and use that tax revenue. So they took that moratorium off in that window, and they just opened it up for any amount, any income level. Anybody could do it. Anybody
Mhm.
can convert IRA. You can convert IRA money even though you're not 59 and a half. That's another thing that folks ask is, do I have to be 59 and a half to convert? No. You could Nick, you, a 30-year-old, could take an IRA if you had one and convert it to a Roth IRA. There's no
Yeah.
penalties for doing that. It's just taxes you deal with. So
Yeah, I actually did a Roth conversion this year. I waited till tax year 2026 because I bring up my wife a lot, but my wife stopped working this year, and I don't think she's going to go back this year, which means our income as a household rate will go down, and our tax table should go down. So I wanted to take advantage of this calendar year to
right.
do that Roth conversion. So Yeah, I mean, I just did one this year because it made sense for us, and next year around tax season, I'll get a 1099 from, the company that it's held at, and I'll give that to my tax person. That's how they report that
Right. And
taxation, but
let's
yeah.
let's go off on a tangent here in a minute. There's 529 plans out there, which are college savings plans. And with the Secure Act 2.0, a lot of people don't know this. We're finding this all the time. If you have unused 529 plan, maybe your son or daughter didn't use all the money that they needed for college, and now they're you're sitting on this 529 money. You have a couple choices. One of them is obviously change the beneficiary to the kid, like Nick did with his daughter, and he changed his daughters as a beneficiary. But the other thing you can do is you can convert that 529 money to Roth IRAs. That's giving your kids a big leg up, or grandchildren for that matter, a big leg up on kind of saving. As long as you've had that 529 for 15 years, and it's just been growing. Now you can convert it to the 529. We did that for Nick's two younger siblings. They had 529 money left over, and now they have good sized Roth IRAs that they're contributing to.
Yeah.
So
So let's jump into from our different perspectives and our different phases of life where, how we think about Roth and whether it makes sense and why we might consider making Roth contributions or doing Roth
yeah, Nick.
conversions.
So your dad says you need a Roth. Do you?
And I listened and I have one. So I'm 30 and I'm at we say the accumulation in the beginning of the accumulation phase in my overall life as it relates to retirement. So at this point, we're just trying to save as much as we can. And with working income, I can make pre-tax or Roth contributions. And so the way I've always explained it to people is I'm not smart enough to figure out where tax rates are going to be 30, 40, 50 years down the road. No one knows where they're going to be. And so what I've done is at the really early part of my working career, I knew that my income would go up later. So it was low at the beginning, which to me was indicative of I'm probably in a lower tax bracket. So initially 100% of my contributions to a retirement account were Roth because I wanted to take advantage of those lower tax rates while I could stay in those lower brackets. As my income's gone up a little bit, I get it. Pre-tax contributions and that tax break started to be more enticing. So at this point, I contribute personally 50% of my retirement savings Roth and 50% pre-tax. And my rationale behind that is when I get to 65 or 70 and I'm done working, at that point, I've got 2 pots of money, and it's up to me which pot I wanna take distributions from to supplement my retirement income. If we have an administration and a Congress in place right when I retire that has really, really high tax rates, well, great, I'll take my money from my Roth that I saved because there's no income tax due on that. But maybe a new administration rolls around and they actually cut taxes a lot. Well, then it's more enticing to take my pre-tax money out and I'll preserve that Roth tax-free status for a longer period of time. So in our world, it's all about just coming up with plans that give us some flexibility down the road so that we're not beholden to any one decision that's already made for us. And like you said, we have people in retirement who their required minimum distributions coming out of pre-tax accounts way exceed their working income when they were working. And so now that's forcing them into a higher tax bracket, and there's really nothing they can do other than giving that money away to charity, which some do, but, if your intention is to keep it within your household or your family, you're gonna have to pay taxes on that money. So, um, that's that's kind of the first component of it. Secondly, for me, I like the idea of Roth because, again, all that growth is tax-free. I don't remember the name, but there's one of these big tech investors who I think right around the time Roth IRAs came out, he invested in some private company in a Roth IRA, right? And that private company now is worth $1 billion or tons and tons of money. So all of that, this is a really extreme example, but all of that growth from that private investment that he made, that he held inside of a Roth IRA, is tax free. Now, that's not going to happen in most cases. I don't expect that to happen to me, but again, it just illustrates the point that you can you can stay, generally speaking, pretty aggressive, or we like to stay more aggressive with our Roth money because we're just trying to get all the growth we can because it's coming out tax free. So that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but that's how for our family, just starting off our 30s here, that's how I think about Roth contributions.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways I can go with this. I think folks listening will be surprised to know that I hire a financial advisor. I have my own financial advisor, and it's not Nick. Nick can certainly do the job, but I have somebody that my wife and I trust. And early on, one of the things he told me, he said, Mike, you have a lot of money saved in qualified accounts. Those are IRAs and retirement plans. He says, you've done a very, very good job saving in that area, but you don't have a lot in Roth or after tax savings, and you need to diversify a little bit. You need to kind of open that up because, again, to Nick's point, you want to have a couple spigots that you can kind of pull from at retirement, depending on where taxes are and your income needs. So to me, a Roth IRA makes sense to use, even though I'm at a pretty high income limit. I still put money into a Roth. I have other deductions, and that's the thing to remember for folks is as you kind of go through life, um, when you file your taxes, you're gonna have a standard deduction, but a lot of folks have mortgages that they can write off. They have a lot of other deductions that they can write off that'll reduce their taxes. So that
So
helps the kind of the logic around using the Roth IRA. So as a 62-year-old, how do I look at Roth for my own personal? Again, we've done a very good job of saving, and I am worried about required minimum distributions. I really am when I get to be 75. I also have 3 children and a grandchild that I love very, very much. I know that my wife and I are going to be fine from an income standpoint. So now is I tell all of my clients, I said, when you kind of look at your life and the folks you care about, at the bottom of the pyramid is you and your spouse. Number one, always number one, you and your spouse. But then when you figure out if you've done proper planning, if you figured out that you and your spouse are going to be okay, you go up the pyramid and now it's your family. And family obviously is the kids and the grandkids, but it could be brothers and sisters and maybe even your parents. But you start looking at other people around you that you love and how can you take care of them. And then the third level is charity. A lot of my clients, a lot of them stop at the family, and I get that. But charity is the third level that we want to take care of. So from my personal standpoint, if I convert some of my money to Roth IRA, I am going to be, when it's in a Roth, it's going to be aggressive. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most aggressive, 1 being the most conservative, it's a 9 because I want as much growth out of that as I can. Because honestly, it's not my money anymore. It's my kids' money who are 30, 28, and 25. So I'm investing for a 30, a 28, and a 25-year-old. So I should be aggressive with that money because I don't need it. I'm also not going to be forced to take money out of that as a required minimum distribution. So it gives me a nice avenue to save. Here's the other piece of this puzzle, which is really cool, I think. Nick's daughter, Charlotte, is 18 months, right, Nick?
Mhm.
She's going to need college money in 16, 17 years. Now we're probably going to be fine, but I have Roth. I have a Roth IRA now that I can give her tax-free money to help her with college. And it's not going to hurt me. It's not going to hurt her. It's not going to hurt her parents. So it's a nice way to kind of convert that over. So let me, as an investor, that's what I'm looking at is how do I convert that? How do I get out of RMDs? How do I avoid paying taxes when I don't know where taxes are going to be? So that's the first piece. As a parent, again, I want to leave money to the kids. I want to leave money to the kids, and I want it in a very tax efficient way. Because remember, when my wife and I pass away, Nick has 10 years to take all of the retirement money out. He has 10 years. Yeah, does he want to take out tax-free money or taxable money? What would you rather take out over a 10-year period, Nick?
uh probably tax free, I would say.
Tax-free. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a big reason that we do it. Let me give you one more kind of fun little um, hint, or I guess a play. When your children start working at 16, they start. I was scooping ice cream at Baskin Robbins when I was 16. But when your children start working, whether they're working at the yogurt shop or wherever they're working, they start earning an income. Try to get them in the best habits you can. And one of the best habits you can do is get them to save early, not just spend all their paycheck, but save a little bit. So what you could encourage them to do is save money into a Roth IRA. Remember, you can put 100% of your income up to $7,500 into a Roth. So it's not a percentage, it's 100% up to that limit. So Nick is 16 years old, and Nick's working, at the sandwich shop down the street. And I tell Nick, I said, Nick, listen, I want you to save, and whatever you save into the Roth, I'm going to do a parent match, 50 cents on the dollar. So all you got to do is save, in that example, 37.50, and I'll put 37.50 in, and then you'll have $7,500 go into a Roth IRA. So I'm not getting a tax break, which is fine, but it's getting him in the habit of saving. Now, honestly, if he brings me his statement at the end of the year and he saved 37.50, I could put 37.50 in there and then write him another check for 37.50 to show him how proud I am of him saving. So he has no money out of his pocket at all. But I think this is a good way to encourage your kids to get in the habit of saving early on, because they're going to see that Roth IRA. And as you know, if you've saved it before, when you get a statement with $7,000 in there, yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of good. But when you get a statement with $50,000, it gets a little bit more exciting. You become a little bit more in tune. And now that kid can start looking at that money and go into a Charles Schwab or some brokerage outfit where he or she can start investing on their own, and they could be learning the process. So it's just a nice little tidbit to try to get you folks your kids to save a little bit early. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, it's just I enjoy seeing Roth become more and more prevalent nowadays, and there's a lot of really unique planning ideas that you can implement around Roths and Roth conversions, and just trying to have a long-term plan of where are we gonna be, not just next year, but 10,
yeah,
15, 20, 30 years down the road. And so I totally get it as it relates to Roth. We want the tax break. No one likes paying taxes every year, right? We try to minimize our taxes through planning and making contributions and mortgage deductions and all that. But I think that there really can be a case for Roth in a lot of scenarios. It's just sometimes the way I put it is we gotta take our medicine and pay taxes up front sometimes in exchange for, that tax-free growth down the road. I think in closing, any kind of last thoughts you've
well,
got
I
with.
would encourage anyone who's interested to talk to a financial advisor, or even your CPA, your accountant. Don't AI this. Don't Google and try to figure this out yourself, because there's a lot of moving parts on why you should or shouldn't. Tax ramifications are important. What taxes are you going to pay, and where's the taxes going to come from? So don't. Again, I'm a family man. I'm trying to take care of my family, and I think most folks that are listening to this are that way too. They want to make sure they're doing the best thing for themselves, their spouse, but their family. And Roth is truly a family, kind of a family plan, really, if you think about it. So
Yeah, I think an immediate takeaway too that I wanted to mention is it's a good conversation to have with your CPA. Maybe take this question to them, say, is it worth considering any sort of Roth conversions this year? I heard on a podcast that Roth conversions up to a certain tax bracket
hmm
might make sense. There might be a way for me to use up the rest of my tax bracket at 24% or whatever it may be. What's that number that I can convert this year while keeping me under that tax bracket? And they can run the calculations and say, hey, maybe you convert $20,000 this year, but next year we can convert $30,000 or
Yeah,
whatever it may be.
Nick, what we didn't mention was the IRMA tax too. When
Mhm.
required minimum distributions come out and you're over a certain income, you start getting Medicare surcharges. So it's not just if you're forced out money on top of an income, it's not just higher income taxes, but now you're going to pay higher Medicare taxes too. So that's what we're trying to avoid for you. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, in
Nick, you
future.
you also said check with your employer. Check with your employer to see if they've got a Roth 401k available. And if they do, start off small. If you're putting 6% pre-tax, go ahead and change it. Put 2% Roth and keep 4% pre-tax, so you can see how this works.
Yeah, and I just keep thinking of more things. A lot of plans nowadays too, they allow you to do Roth conversions within the plan too, right? So we talked about IRA conversions into Roth IRAs, but a lot of plans will allow you to do a Roth 401k conversion within the plan. So
Right.
there's all sorts of different things you can do depending on your employer and what you have access to. So just, speak up. You're welcome to send us an email, ask your employer if things like that are available at your workplace, and you can come up with a plan to move forward
Yeah,
and,
we're
and get
we're
some more
long
Roth
here,
money.
Nick. So
Yeah.
we
All right. Well,
we get excited about this stuff. So we're gonna dig deeper in other subjects. I know later. So
yeah. So moving forward, we'll go through more topics like this that are a little bit more tactical and get into more detail on some of these planning concepts and things that we like to implement for folks. So as always, if you'd like a copy of The Decision Decade, that's the book that my dad wrote. It's right behind you, Dad. I see it in that new set back there that you got. But if you'd like a copy of the book, feel free to jump on our website. There's a pop-up that comes up and you fill out, I think, your name and your email maybe, and we'll get in touch with you to send you a copy of the book. It's free, so just, let us know if you want a copy of that. I think it'll help as you start to navigate some of these questions on your own and try to come up with solutions and things for your family to put everyone in a better spot. Dad, I think that's all I've got, unless you've got anything that you'd like to close with.
no, your haircut looks good. So
Thanks. Yeah,
I'm
I
getting
know.
mine cut tomorrow. So
Okay,
I'm
good.
1 day late.
Yeah, mine was getting a little bit long. It was getting a little unruly, so I cleaned it
It
up a
was
little bit.
curling back here. I saw
Yeah,
that.
I guess I didn't think I have curly hair, but turns out I do have curly hair when it gets long enough. So, all right, everybody, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Episode 4 of Money Made Simple, and we'll see you guys next time.